I would say my love for art was influenced by two persons. One would be my late father, who was a visionary educator. He was a headmaster of a school, very interested in promoting co-curriculum art education or any education of the sort. The other person would be Khoo Sui Ho. You will know Khoo Sui Ho. This is one of Khoo Sui Ho's pieces. One of our, I would call him one of our best artists. Khoo Sui Ho was a family friend, so he would know me from the time I was born. And I grew up going to his studio at Lim Chong Kiat's residence in Macalister Road. Lim Chong Kiat gave him a space for a number of years before he emigrated to the US. So I grew up seeing a lot of art. Sui Ho had a Uttara group. If you have heard of that, there was a group of artists that he gathered from the north of Malaya. That's why it's called Uttara. And they had almost yearly show in Penang in the 70s, 80s. So that was a time where I was exposed to a lot of art. My first piece of art that I purchased, that would be, I think, 95. I was then a young lawyer, earning less than 2,000 a month. And the first piece of art cost me more than double my monthly salary. So that was influenced by my good friend artist James Sam, another Penang artist based in London. And he came to Penang, we went to an art show. This was a traveling show. Paintings were brought in from China. And he said, wow, these are very good pieces at a very reasonable price. So I bought a Xu Zixue. Xu Zixue is a mainland Chinese artist from Heilongjiang. And you can see the painting later. It is he is famous for painting the snow scene of Heilongjiang, particularly snow and ice, using Chinese ink, which is quite amazing. So James gave me another encouragement. He said, don't worry, buy it, and since you like it, and if one day you think of giving that up, I'll buy it off you at the same price. So that gave me the courage, right, to buy that piece. And as they say, the rest is history. It's been 25 years since. Yeah. You can get hold of the retrospective book. Khoo Sui Ho was born in Kedah, in Baling, Kedah. But he spent his formative years in Penang, studied in Penang. And he went on to study art in NAFA, right? The Nanyang Academy of Fine Art in Singapore. That was in the late 50s. And he was under the tutelage of people like Cheong Shu Ping, Georgette Chen. These are all pioneer artists or pioneer Nanyang artists. When we say Nanyang, we mean the South Seas, south of China. That's where a lot of Chinese emigrated to. What was interesting then was there's this confluence of two art traditions, the Chinese art tradition, the Oriental art tradition, and the Western art tradition. Right. So we had a lot of imports, right? When we talk about Malaya and Singapore and Malaya were all together. There were a lot of artists which were imported, right? People like Liu Kang, Cheong Shu Ping, Georgette Chen. And artists is always seeking for identity, right? So They are now settled in a new land, armed with their passion for creating art. They then went on to seek an identity, how they best present their art in the new environment they were in. And that was how this Nanyang style developed. So Khoo Sui Ho would be called a second generation Nanyang artist. And the first and second generation Nanyang artists influenced the subsequent generation. Right? So if you look at Khoo Sui Ho's work, it spawned many followers. Right? And Khoo Sui Ho was in Nanyang together with people like Latif Mohidin. Latif Mohidin, the other preeminent Malaysian artist, was also Nanyang trained. Right? So NAFA became a very important institution in helping to form, right, the art direction in Malaya. Of course, like I mentioned, I had the advantage of a father who knew a lot of artists. In the 70s, 60s, 70s, the art community and the education community is were quite close. Very often, art shows were organized by art educators, like my father. Yeah. So, I think one of the interesting thing about collecting art is to get to know the artist, right? Not just owning a piece. Yeah. Again, I will attribute it to the opportunities given by Khoo Sui Ho. Khoo Sui Ho emigrated to the US, but he was still keeping this connection with Penang. Comes back once or twice a year, and I think it was 2004 when he started the Alpha Utara Gallery. Sui Ho ran the Alpha Gallery in Singapore in the 70s. Alpha Gallery became a very important gallery in Singapore. It ran for about 17 years. And then 2004, he had the opportunity to open up another gallery that was in China Street. So when he opened up the gallery, he was commuting between US and Penang. So he often was not in Penang. So I was roped in to help him, right? To help him run the gallery, curate some shows. So I was given opportunity to write, right, to deal with artists. And finally, I think in 2005 or 6, I was invited by Dr. Tang Hong Yin, who was then the chairman of Penang State Art Gallery, to join the committee. Right? Yeah, going back to the same story, I joined the State Art Gallery committee in 2006. The State Art Gallery by then, we have had some retrospective exhibition for deserving artists, but it was not done in a very structured way. Maybe by 2006, by then we have had 5 or so retrospective shows, and the publication wasn't substantial. So come 2006, the committee decided that we should do it better, and we decided to have to identify an artist, a deserving artist connected to Penang, to honor them with a retrospective show. So we started with Khoo Sui Ho, in 2006, and it has been like 12 years now. This year we're going to do Chayusek. And I was given the privilege to be the guest curator and editor for Kusuiho's retrospective in 2006, I think. Yeah. Some collectors would be very focused in the way they collect. Right? For example, Dr. Rampal in KL, he only collects painting of Indian temples. Right? But for me, I'm in Penang, and I use Penang as an excuse. The best way to describe Penang is eclectic. Right? Penang is rojak. Because of our multicultural, multiracial background, we have a very interesting array of things, of artists, of people, of type of arts. And I'm being in Penang, I can't help but being rojak as well in terms of my collection. So in that sense, I give myself the fun of purchasing whatever art that strikes my fancy. But my principle is it must be a piece that I'm willing to hang on my wall, right? A piece that I would like myself. So as a collector, I think there are two sides to it. One, I love owning eclectic pieces from different artists. So I can enjoy art for art's sake. I can enjoy art with your message. All sorts of medium, later you'll see. But then also I have the privilege of going in depth, right? When, in particular, with artwork of artists that I like a lot. People like Kusuiho, and recently I had the privilege of buying Datuk Teh Moliong, our pioneer batik artist. He was recognized as one of the 3 pioneer batik artists in Malaysia by the National Art Gallery, Chua Tian Teng, Teh Moliong himself, and Khalil Ibrahim. So I have the privilege of buying up his personal collection, right, of all his works that he still has. So that's when I can go deep into an artist's career and work. I would say, depending on when you start collecting, and depending on how deep your pocket is, all right, let's assume that your pocket is not very deep and you like art. Right? I would say pick up pieces from emerging artists, right? Artists, your peers, right? People of your age or younger, right? They eventually will go somewhere. There is a certain risk. You don't know if the artist is going to be passionate enough to make art their career. In that sense, it can be fun, getting to know the artist. All right. Art, don't see art as a monetary investment. Right? It can turn out to be a good investment, right? But that cannot be your primary motive. So always buy art because you like it. Right? So eventually, if it's not worth much, at least you still have a piece that you like. Right? So that's important. And if they happen to become good artists, great artists, then you will also reap that reward. Right? So in that sense, I'm not that, when I started collecting, some of the so-called master's work are already very expensive. And I choose not to buy them. If I spend X sum for one piece of master's work, I may have more fun collecting 30 pieces of young artist work. For me, collecting that 30 pieces is much more fun than that one piece. All right? So it's never too late for you to start collecting. Right? So each of us, we have to go with the times.